Okay, well, I'm going to try this again because I like doing everything multiple times. You know, I said that, I'm trying to do a bunch of new things this year, and, part of it is kind of what I'm doing right now. Yeah, I'm just kind of monitoring my feeds here. I don't know why the video cuts out. It's really kind of weird to me, but I'm going to just kind of push through this. I got my screens going on over there, so I kind of see what's going on. But I'm doing a couple of different things this year, and I'm testing out a bunch of different features and things. I'm working on spatial video, which is like 3D, and then I also have 360. So I'm trying to incorporate that. I can't do live spatial video, but the reason why I'm so late starting today to get this going a lot earlier is I've been working on how to upload video to YouTube for 3D, and I got it figured out. So now I'm actually recording this in 2 views. I have the live view going right now, and I have a spatial audio or video recording going right now too. And I'm just gonna work on trying to perfect that. So when the season comes up, work on some different types of views and just some different things, lawn mowing is lawn mowing and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people like and enjoy and get some peace and serenity out of just watching somebody do lawn mowing. And, I'm no different. I love watching lawn mowing videos. There is something about watching somebody put down a fresh cut on a lawn and striking and all that good stuff. Now, I mow at a low rate, and that's what I'm going to talk about this year. But, a lot of the things that I do, although I'm doing low mow, it will apply to regular cut lawns as well. I'm really no different than anybody else who has a regular yard. I just cut it a low setting. I have my McLane greenskeeper right here. I'm going to talk about a couple of things on that here in just a little bit. Hang on just one second. I'm going to adjust this camera just a little bit because it's kind of bothering me. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second because I figured out, my adjusting problem. And this is going to go back to one of the things I've said about McLane and their quality. I like the mower and I've got it working really good for me, but there's still just a few things that I run into every now and then that just drives me nuts. But I work through them. So I wanted to first start talking about preparing for spring, your season. Talk about what you should start thinking about. I know it's January. It's raining outside right now. I'm supposed to cook a rotisserie chicken today on the barbecue outside, so I'm going to have to put the tent up and all that kind of stuff. I knew it was supposed to rain, but I looked at the radar and all that stuff. It didn't look like, because I really wanted to mow. I don't really need to mow, but I just want to get the lawnmower out there and mow. But I can't do it. So just because it's January and, some people are sitting inside staring at, a yard covered with snow. Other people are just really cold down in California and the South. Some people's yards are dormant. And other people, California and the South, that have cool season lawns are still mowing. I remember when I lived in California, I pretty much mowed all year round down there. But I really never paid attention to the types of grass I was growing, what I was doing, all that kind of stuff. I just knew what I learned from my dad. And the reality is everything has come back full circle to me, and I'm doing the exact same things I was doing before. I got a couple of extra little things that I do here and there, but for the most part, I'm just on a nitrogen program with my yard. And I want to talk about getting your yard up to par for the next season and making it look good. If you want to do a lawn renovation, I have some videos on my channel about lawn renovating. And that brings me to one of my points here. I do have a new YouTube channel. I put a post up in my on my Me and My McLane YouTube channel. I posted a message there, and I gave you a link for a new channel that I'm starting. And I'm going to start utilizing this channel so that I could do dual live streams, you know, one in maybe 360 and the other one in just regular. I don't know. I haven't really decided how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to put kind of some different content on each one. One's more going to be of a learning type of a thing, and another one's going to be just doing stupid stuff like I do right now. I've been, excuse me, I've been doing this for a year. You know, I do crazy, wild things. I talk a lot. I talk about all kinds of different things, but I'm starting to put some educational videos together. And on this new channel, I'm just looking for some subscribers right now because I need to get to 50 to be able to do live. And I want to start incorporating some new different things on that channel, and more of an educational, fact-based stuff. I mean, not that my channel here is not fact-based, it's definitely fact-based. I can substantiate everything I say by research. People who have PhDs in soil science can back me up. I even will disagree with something that either ChatGTP says or something that I see on the internet. I mean, I see a lot of guys that say that they're research-based and they, you know, are based on research and stuff like that, and they're not. Just because you can hear by the things they talk about, you know that they really aren't research-based. So if you could check that out, it's Easy Lawns, and it's Easy Lawns with a Z at the end. And like I said, I posted a link in it, just looking for some people to subscribe to it so I can get it going and get it so I can start doing some live on it. 50 subscribers is what I need. So that's that. As far as the renovations go for spring, you know, I'm looking at doing another, not full renovation, but I am about 95% sure I'm ripping out my putting green. I've thought up some ideas and things to do with the sod that I pull out from there. And, you know, when I originally put it in, just a quick background on my putting green. When I originally put it in, I just started doing it just to do it because, you know, I watched YouTube, and YouTube told me that it was going to be really difficult and a pain, and it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it takes a lot of money because you need a lawnmower. You know, this is a $3,000 lawnmower. And that's pretty much the least expensive to get down to like 2 and 3 millimeters. And I've had to modify this McLane to get it so that I can cut it 2 and 3 millimeters. But what I found out was, in the past 3 years, I started it 3 years ago, and I've been through 3 full seasons with the putting green. What I found is it's actually my favorite grass. It's my favorite grass to grow. It's my favorite grass to maintain. I wish my full yard was bent grass and I was mowing it at like putting green level, 2 millimeters. But the bottom line is to do that and make my yard really level for mowing at 2 millimeters, it would take a lot of work. I'm just doing, I don't know, I have probably about a 600 square foot putting green right now. It's not small, but it's not huge. It's big enough to have some nice long putts on it. I'm looking to get back into golf this year. I'm looking to start working at a golf course as well. But you know, I'm going to be doing some renovations, and maybe you're going to be doing some renovations. So it's time to start thinking about that. Do you need dirt? Do you need topsoil? You know, what are you going to do? Are you going to kill it off, you know, 100%? Are you just going to do a overseed? You know, there's all different kinds of things you can do to your lawn, but you need to start thinking about it now to get prepared for spring when it comes. Now, I personally am against the grain on all of this stuff. You know, if you're in a part of the country where the heat comes in really quick and really hard, you know, you might have a few problems, but you might want to get started a lot sooner. You know, get all your work done so that when you know the temperatures are going to start getting up there and your soil temperatures are going to rise to 55 degrees, you know, that's the key magic number, 55 degrees. So when your soil temps are coming up at around 50 degrees, 48 degrees, you need to start thinking about either killing off pre-emergence or whatever it is you plan on doing to get your yard started and your yard going for the 2026 season. And if you're looking to just get your yard in shape, maybe, you know, your yard is just looking terrible right now. You've never really maintained it. You've got weeds, you know, and it looks terrible. It's got a lot of moss and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I have videos. I've did a couple of yards last season in the spring. You know, they weren't the worst yards, but they weren't the best either. My next door neighbor, Wilson, I'm going to be doing a lot on his yard this year with showing how it's doing and the progression of it, because I'm mowing it with my Honda mower. I'm mowing at a regular, you know, height like what everybody else does. And I'm just showing the contrast and the difference between, you know, two different types of mowing styles, short, low cut, and regular cut, which is what most homeowners are doing. I have Doug across the street. I redid his yard last year. He's growing my exact same Kentucky bluegrass that I have over here. And Kathy, she's got the same thing in her yard. We did that in September. Doug's we did early enough to where it came in really well, but he's got some drainage problems. Kathy, we started hers a lot later because she kind of came to me really late, and I told her when she came to me and asked me if we could do it, I said, we need to do it. If you really want to do it, we got to do it right now because it's getting late. And we didn't quite get it done early enough to where it was going to grow in full and completely like Doug's has across the street. So hers is going to need a little more attention in the spring to kind of give it a kickstart and get it growing really good. So, you know, I'll show that as springtime comes and kind of where it's at. Both of their yards have really bad drainage problems. I mean, it rains like crazy out here in the wintertime. I don't know if you saw my live I did the last two weekends ago or whatever it was, where I was moving the cup in my putting green, but you know, the cup was full of water, and it just, the ground is so saturated and so moist that water just isn't draining right now. So anyways, back to renovations. You know, thinking about these things now, calling a rockery where they have topsoil or dirt or sand or the mixes that you need, or even waiting for the Home Depot or Lowe's or your favorite hardware store that, you know, provides topsoil and compost and all those sorts of things, you know, waiting for them to have their sales. You know, when they have their big sales, you know, I know Home Depot and Lowe's, their big thing is 5 bags of topsoil or compost for $10. I think it is like $2 a bag. You know, they're not huge bags, but, you know, they're bags. You know, if you have, you know, 3,000 square feet or more that you're doing, you might want to think about starting to look at a rockery or, you know, a landscape supply place for delivery of larger batches of topsoil or dirt or compost or a 3-way mix. You know, they're all really important to look at. You know, maybe you're just getting sand and you just want to kind of do a leveling. You know, that's fine too. But these are all the things that you should start thinking about now. I have a neighbor that wants me to do a full renovation. It's like 7,500 square feet. Oops. It's like 7,500 square feet. And I have 2 microphones on because I got 2 different recordings going on. And it's a huge project, and I'm still debating on whether I want to do it for them. I mean, I'm going to charge them for it for my time. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a couple of weekends. They're really nice people, but it's going to cost a lot of money. It's a lot of dirt. They have like a real big low spot in their yard too. And 7,500 square feet is a lot of dirt to spread. You know, they want to do like a full kill off, kill everything, kill the weeds, you know, get one grass type going, and, you know, move forward with that. So that's another thing you need to think about. What kind of grass do you want to grow? You know, they're all different. They're all going to provide different types of looks throughout the year. You know, I do Kentucky bluegrass, 100% Kentucky bluegrass, and in the wintertime, it really thins out. I mean, you know, it's raining really bad right now, but, you know, it's thin. And the sun gets so low in the winter in Western Washington that there's a lot of shaded areas in my yard and a lot of areas that just don't get sun. And those areas just basically lose out any grass that's in it. You know, the moisture and all the wet and everything like that makes it so it's just really tough for those areas to to do anything. So Kentucky bluegrass, if that's something you want, it looks great in the spring, summer, and fall. In the wintertime, it's going to thin out a little bit. If you have a lot of shade in your yard in the wintertime, you're probably going to lose some of that grass, and you're going to have to do some reseeding, at the beginning of the next year. For the most part, mine comes back in most of the areas. I do put some seed down in those areas to kind of give it a boost because my lawn isn't really fully established yet. I say I've been doing this for 3 years, but last year I did. Was it last year or the year before? Now I can't even keep track. I think it's been 2 seasons now. I've been doing the Kentucky bluegrass, but I've done a lot of major upgrades in my yard. I mean, I have the videos. I raised my yard, bed up in the area around the walk to my house and stuff like that. It used to be a lot lower, and I raised it up. So those areas are brand new or patched in grass. I have new grass areas. I'm still working on my putting green as far as, renovating and shaping it and doing all those sorts of things. Because like I said earlier, when I did it just to see if it was going to work because of all the negative I heard about it. And I really have gotten to the point where 2 years ago, I was so tired of hearing all the bad info that YouTube lawn care channels were giving on how to do your yard and what to do in your yard and that sort of thing. That's why I started doing my own channel. Growing grass, having a good yard is really not difficult work. Grass grows, and you don't need to do all these special things people talk about. And I'm not going to really get into it in this video here, but it's basically weekly. I recommend twice a week mowing your yard because the more you mow, the thicker it's going to get, the more it's going to grow. Fertilizing small amounts once a month, and I'm just talking nitrogen-based products. I use urea nitrogen, and I have some iron that I use, heptahydrate, ferrous sulfate, heptahydrate, and I spray all my grass, even my neighbor's grass, with the combination of the two or just the urea nitrogen. And I mix the urea nitrogen from pellet and spray it on my yard, and I do that because my yard is so short, especially my putting green, that you can't spread granules. Even the really small, fine granules, you really can't spread those very evenly and not get a polka dotting effect from the nitrogen kind of showing through. So that's why I spray my yard. If you have thicker grass, taller grass, you can spread urea nitrogen. And we're talking about, just spreading like anywhere from a quarter to a half a pound a month. And, Kentucky bluegrass, fescues, and ryegrass, perennial ryegrass, really only need about 3 pounds of nitrogen a year. So if you break that number down to, simple numbers, third of a pound, quarter pound, half a pound doses once a month, you're just constantly giving it that feeding. And you need to do that with nitrogen, and only nitrogen, because nitrogen is the only macronutrient that is going to volatilize. It's going to vaporize. It's going to change forms in your soil, and it's all based and dependent upon your conditions, where you live, your microbial activity, how your plants, utilizing the nitrogen that's there. But nitrogen changes forms, and this is one of the things that I've talked about with soil testing. There's really no reason to test your soil. That is one of the biggest myths of lawn care, and probably one of the biggest wastes of monies on many fronts. Not only is it a waste of money if you don't have a reason to really do a soil test, there are very few reasons to actually do a soil test. But on top of that, there really is no measurable way to accurately measure the amount of macronutrients in your soil. You can't measure nitrogen, because nitrogen is constantly changing forms. So you can't do that. You don't know. Soluble and unsoluble. You could have unsoluble phosphorus and potassium in your soil, and you could have soluble phosphorus and potassium in your soil. And there's a difference. Soluble is available to your plant to uptake. Soluble nutrients, plant can take it up. Unsoluble, It's just there, but it needs to be activated. And when I say activated, that's where, all the scientific terms come in. We're talking about microbial activity. We're talking about the plant. The plant has the ability to basically talk to the soil and extract the nutrients out of it by its needs. It creates enzymes, and those enzymes kind of work with the microbes to solubilize what it needs. So when you do a soil test, your phosphorus and your potassium reading may be one thing, and you might think you're a little low, and they're going to tell you to put all this stuff in, but the reality is, who knows how much unsoluble potassium and phosphorus you have in your lawn that is going to be able to uptake. And the soil testing process basically makes people spend anywhere from 300 to 700% more on nutrients than they need than just a regular nitrogen program. A nitrogen program is going to save you a lot of money. It's really all your soil and your turf grass needs. And a lot of the things that happen or the problems you have throughout the year are based on over-fertilization, weed problems, over-fertilization, soil that's, too fertile, too nutrient-rich, under-fertilization, same thing. These are all things that lead to weeds and disease. If you have a perfectly balanced soil, you're less likely to have a weed problem. And this is one of the reasons why in my yard, I don't use a lot of weed killers. I start using tenacity in the springtime. Like I'm going to start using it in, actually I already put a dose down in January when it was dry. I don't know how well it's going to take because it's so rainy, but I've started doing it because, I want to work on preventing POA. And for me, that's the best way to prevent the POA from coming in because I don't use pre-emergence. Tenacity is the only pre-emergent, post-emergent that I use, and I use it for two reasons: POA and bent grass. I'm trying to keep both of them out of my Kentucky bluegrass because they're both light colors and they stand out like a sore thumb in my Kentucky bluegrass. So I start using tenacity once a month from now till probably April. And then in April, after most of the POA has emerged and has already taken root, I should be good to go through the rest of the season without having to worry about POA. And then from that point on, I might start using something like sulfentrazone or something like that as a weed killer preventer. But those are the things I'm going to talk about this year. My biggest thing is I just want to talk about preparation. It's just the time to start thinking about what you want to do in your lawn for next season. Very important. I have lots of videos to help you out. If anybody had any questions or anything like that, I never say like and subscribe my videos because that if you want to follow along, you're going to subscribe. If you like the video, you're going to probably click like. It does help get my videos out there to other people because my biggest thing is I'm trying to help people that are new. I was new to what I'm doing now, 3 years ago. And I really feel like I'm just a big victim of being lied to, given bad information. And now when I watch other lawn care YouTube channels, I just kind of laugh and pick out all the bad stuff they're talking about. If you're listening to a guy that tells you need to stock up on fungus and disease control products right now, if you have that problem, your problem is not so much fungus and disease as it is you're probably over fertilizing. And those are the things I want to teach you, and those are the things I want to talk about and tell you why. On my new YouTube channel, I'm working on videos to educate you on the exact details of why these problems occur with over-fertilization or using too much P and K, the micronutrients, a lot of this stuff, you're just never going to have a deficiency on it. And if you do have a deficiency, it's very easy to fix and it's quick to repair. And your grass will come back right away if you identify it. And I've talked about some of those things, and I'm going to get into those a little bit more in some videos I'm starting to prepare for spring and this year. So my key today was I just really wanted to talk about preparing for spring. You know, it's time to start thinking about it. It's time to start thinking about pre-emergence. If you want to put pre-emergence down, you need to start thinking about it. If you're in the South where your yard might start coming back to life in late February or March, you know, you need to think about getting that pre-emergent down. My advice is 48 to 50 degrees is a good time to start getting your pre-emergent down. You want to get it down in there, and you want to get it in the soil before these weeds and weed grasses start germinating. You know, they could germinate anywhere from 50 to 55 degrees. You know, you get a really nice warm day, a couple days a week, you know, in say February, late February or March, you're going to start getting some germination. And once those things have germinated, these pre-emergents aren't going to stop them once they've already started growing. The pre-emergents only work as they're starting to germinate, and before they start to germinate, they kind of get into the main root line and stop it as it's starting trying to root. So think about those things. Your grass types, very important too. You know, for me, because I do single Kentucky bluegrass, you know, if I had some fescue on my lawn or some perennial ryegrass on my lawn, I wouldn't get the thinning that I get. And that's why you see a lot of these grass seed types, bags that are a mix of different types of fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, and perennial rye, because they each have their moments in the season where they really shine. And, you know, like my neighbor's yard, he's got perennial ryegrass. He's doing really great, really thick, looks really good. He's getting some thinning in some areas too that are having some shade problems, and he's got trees and that sort of thing. So he's got some areas that just don't get a lot of sunlight too. And we'll probably put some fescue in that grass area this year now that we know where those parts are. We need to work on some irrigation things over there. But, you know, those are all the things you need to think about. How much shade do I have? Do I have a good watering system? Do I have good water coverage? Do you have an in-ground sprinkler system? You know, do you have a timer for it? You know, you need to set those things up. How are you going to water? You know, the big argument about deep and infrequent and frequent and less watering time, you know, is a big argument. You know, research shows 80% of the research is in favor of frequent and less watering time over deep and infrequent. It just showed that the results in the response in the turf grass was that much better when it was frequent and less over deep and infrequent. You know, everybody talks about this whole thing about, you know, roots and growing down and all that sort of stuff with deep and infrequent, you know, and the research really leans on the side of a more frequent watering over the deep and infrequent type style. You know, overall, it's not going to make a difference. If you want to, you know, water twice a week and you want to do it for a long period of time, you know, those are your choices you need to make. Whatever works and makes your yard look really good is all that's important. And, you know, that's going to work, just like a fertilizer program. I feel that, you know, there's no harm in trying a all nitrogen nutrient program. There's no harm in it. Because if you start a nitrogen program in March for your yard to get it come back when spring comes around, and you feel like that nitrogen program just isn't working for you and you have to have all these other different things, you know, then go ahead and do it. But I've already found out I don't have any of these other products. I don't use any kind of products other than nitrogen. I mean, I don't even know what to tell you or to call them. You know, potassium, phosphorus, these triple numbers things that people talk about. You know, if you want to use, and this is something I might try this year, PGRs, plant growth regulators. You know, those are things that, you know, can help with the amount of work you have to put in your yard. You know, how much you have to mow. I mean, I know in, you know, late spring, summer, because it doesn't get really hot out here in Western Washington, I can spend a lot of time mowing. I mow at least 3 days a week, especially on the putting green. I probably need to mow more than that, but at this point right now, I usually mow Saturday and Sunday in the late spring and summer, and I will try to mow at least once, like Wednesday during the week. I work, and sometimes I get home really late, and I don't want to mow, but I know I have to mow at least once a week during the week in the spring and summer and the fall. So I try to do that. Would I like to do more? Sure. Mowing at 9 millimeters on my Kentucky bluegrass and 2 millimeters on my putting green. To keep my putting green really looking nice, really need to mow it at least every other day, and I just don't do it right now. So those are the things I want to talk about with the yard and those sorts of things, and we'll talk more about it as things go on, but it's time to start thinking about what you want to do. Do you want to add to your yard? Do you want to extend your yard? Do you want to tear out a planter and put in grass? I mean, I did that last year. I put in a retaining wall last year, just a little small one, but one of the big projects I have this year is I have one in my backyard and one in my front yard. But I have this area in my front yard that I need to raise my retaining wall up and kind of fill in a low spot, because I have my yard and it just kind of pitches almost straight down from my grass down to my retaining wall, which is about 10 inches lower at the driveway. And because it slopes, as it goes down, it starts leveling out. But I need to work on that area, because that area is driving me nuts right now. So I've already taken measurements. I know what things I need to get, but that's what I'm talking about in preparing. I know I need to go buy 34 retaining wall bricks, and I'm going to need to work on soil, what kind of soil to put in there, and that's what I'm starting to think of. I think I'm just going to do topsoil. I'm going to get a bunch of bags of dirt from Home Depot when they go on sale for the spring sale. I'll get topsoil, get compost, and potting, not potting soil, but a growing type medium, because I basically have flowers and things like that in that area of my yard, and I'm going to fill it in with that. It's not a huge area. It's only about 20 feet by 3 feet, so it's not a lot of dirt, and that's what I'm talking about. I've made the decision. I don't need to have dirt brought in. I haven't decided on the rest of my yard how I'm going to deal and attack that yet. I think I'm just going to do a basic leveling and sanding on my Kentucky bluegrass. I'm not doing any composting this year. I've learned over the last year, composting is a great thing to do if you want worms and you want to increase your potassium and phosphorus in your lawn, because that organic material is what creates all three of those things: worms, potassium, and phosphorus. And that's, again, why your lawn cycles through using the potassium and phosphorus throughout the year, and then rebuilding it in the off season, because just the way the seasons work, and a lot of people mow their leaves back into their lawns and things like that, and they get that organic material back in there in the fall, and in the wintertime that organic material breaks down. All those things, there's just so much that happens in your yard that is just natural. There's a lot of things that you just are overdoing things on, and you're creating these other problems. You're creating the disease problem, you're creating the weed problem. So I think as far as things go with the yard and thinking about things, I'm just trying to get you to start thinking about some of those things maybe you haven't thought about, So anyways, just a quick thing on my McLane here. I've been talking about, ever since I put my new smooth roller on, if you remember, I also replaced my adjustment brackets. My adjustment brackets, these are the two main things to my adjustment brackets. This adjustment knob goes into this slot here on this adjustment bracket, and it's what makes the roller go up and down, and that's what changes the height of cut. So ever since I put these new brackets on the smooth roller, I'm having this problem adjusting my blade. I have my blade adjustment measuring tool right here, and when you measure, you got this plunger that goes up and down. It basically, grabs onto the top of the blade here, and it basically is giving you an indication of how far it is from your bed knife to your roller, and that basically determines what your cutting height is right there, that difference in between. So when I've been adjusting, my problem's been it is constantly shifting as I'm doing the adjusting. I'll measure one side, I'll get it right. I'll go measure the other side, I'll get it right. I'll go back to the other side, I'll check it just to make sure, and it's like, it's just way off. And it's like, what's going on? And I'm going back and forth and adjusting these things. Well, the simple answer is, again, the poor quality in workmanship on McLane's part. I have 3 of these adjusting brackets. I have these new ones. These are brand new and I just got them. And yesterday I was out here messing around with it, trying to figure out what the problem is. And I thought about it over last week of what the problem was, and it actually is what the problem is. So I'm going to come up to the camera here and just kind of show you. So it's hard for me to see if you can see the difference, but if you could see the difference in the thickness between this and this, can you tell how this one is thinner and this one is thicker? So here's the problem. When you put this adjusting knob in here, see, it doesn't rock back and forth. There's no real play in the knob. Okay? When you put it over here, okay, you see all the play that you have on that? So that play is what is creating the adjustment problem, because it's enough to where when you adjust it, you get it set at one height. If you just slightly put a little extra pressure on it, it moves the roller up and down. And it creates that small movement, and it changes the height. So I'm going to paint these. I'm actually going to grind these down, finish grinding them. I'm going to paint these. I think these brackets I got the last time I got new brackets. I can't remember now. I'm pretty sure, because you see I've ground them out here already, because before I got the measuring tool, I used to think that this was the problem of why I was having such a hard time adjusting it up and down, and it would bind and it would change and it would stick. And the reality was, it was just the amount of pressure that, because the way I used to adjust it before, everything was on the ground like it is right now, and I was just adjusting these knobs like this with it on the ground like it is, and I was having a hard time, and the adjustment wasn't sliding on this bracket here smooth enough to where it would go up and down as I'm turning this. It would kind of bind up, and if one side was higher or lower than the other, it just wasn't working properly. Now that I do it with my adjustment gauge here, and I do it with no pressure, I do it with my lawnmower back like this, and there's no pressure on the roller. So now it sits and it can be adjusted properly. Oops. But yeah, so that brought me to this new problem of the sloppiness in these brackets. So I have 3 brackets. None of them are the same thickness. Okay, this is the best one that I have right here. This one's an older one. I actually painted these. I believe these are my original ones. And then the ones I have on there are basically like this right here, because the slop is about the same, like this right here, on these adjusting brackets. So my resolution is, I've talked about the friend of mine that has a friend who has a CNC machine. I'm thinking about having him make me my own brackets and making them so that they're this thickness right here. So what I was thinking was originally was maybe putting like a fender washer or something on this knob, but you can't because it's slotted. So you can't put a washer on this to fit in here to make it go higher, but I can weld a washer on this right here And that's kind of what I'm thinking I might do, is just have a washer or extra material welded up here and then grind it down to where this fits in there perfectly, snug, so there's no play up and down or sloppiness, making the adjusting easier. So I'm going to paint these. I'm going to get these on, and I'm going to put them back on here probably next weekend. You know, I was really hoping I was going to mow today, but it's just raining. So I'm not going to get to mowing. But anyways, that's what I figured out on this. And, you know, with the McLane, for my putting green mowing height, I'm constantly battling issues and new issues and just things. It seems not all the time, but, you know, here and there. So I figured a lot of these things out on my own. McLane, they've helped me on a few things, because I have had some problems with my clutch belt and slipping and stuff, and I've talked about that. I've talked about using a larger belt, the next size up. I'm actually have the stock belt back on. I've messed with this adjustment enough to where I've got the stock belt working good. And then also my drive and gauge handle, I had the bearing in that break, and that caused some problems with the drive wheel dragging on the ground because of the sloppiness in that handle. So there, you know, there's been a lot of things. I use this thing a lot. So, you know, with use, with everything, it's going to wear out. So that's what's happened. That's what's going on with this thing. I'm glad I'm figuring these things out, because, you know, next season, I'm really looking to spend more time with a nice, great lawn, and not these issues I've been having with the dragging of the bed knife on my putting green, ruin my putting green, you know, those sorts of things. I think my putting green would be a 500% better right now if I was aware of these issues and problems before I started creating the issues on my putting green. I think my putting green would look a lot better, and I wouldn't have to be doing a lot of things. So that's what I have for this week. Again, if you could look on my post on my YouTube channel page, Me and My McLane, I do have a link to a new channel that I'm starting. I'm just trying to get 50 subscribers on it so I can start doing live on that channel. And I'm going to start posting a little bit different type of information, you know, educational information on yards. One last thing, you know, I had been looking into college courses for taking classes on learning about more about grass, like college type courses on grass and turf grass. And I actually, you know, applied to some, not applied, but, you know, went to schools to get information on the cost. You know, I mean, I work, I'm a full-time worker. I mean, grass and all that stuff, it's not my full-time job. I mean, I have a real job, and I just want to have a nice lawn. And so I wanted to take some courses, and I wanted to learn specific things because I'm tired of just all the BS on YouTube and just the poor information. So I found out that was going to be really expensive, and I just don't have time to do that, you know, for that money. But I found turfgrassepistemology.com. This is where Dr. Travis Shaddix, he's a PhD in soil science. He is an actual college level instructor, whatever you call that, you know, professor, teacher, educator, you know, does classes. He actually has put out, or is putting out, he has his first set out right now of courses on turf grass. And he's putting out a whole series of courses, like college level learning courses on turf grass and growing turf grass and understanding soil, nutrients, you know, all these sorts of things, you know, what's important, why it's important, you know, why these things are not important, you know, just all that information. I've already signed up. I'm already started. He just started this last week, I think it is. And I'm already signed up, and I'm already starting my first course. And the great thing is once you pay for a course, and they're not even really that expensive, you know, for like $30 or something like that, you could, you know, sign up for a course, and he's going to give you that college level education information on turf grass. He's got a bunch of things coming out, and he's going to be putting out, and you can sign up for whatever the ones are that you want to learn. And once you sign up and you pay for those are there for a lifetime. You'll have lifetime viewing on those courses that you paid for. And so you can always revert back to them. You know, my memory is not that great, so I don't remember as well, you know, what I learned. So I watch things over and over and over again to try to get it pounded in my brain. And that's what I'm going to do with these courses. So if you're interested in learning more about turfgrass, this turfgrassepistemology.com is where you can go and you can sign up for these courses. I mean, for $25, that's less than a bag of fertilizer. You're probably going to learn to stop using fertilizers and what fertilizers you actually should be using, and save money that way. And that extra money you're going to save on what you would normally do in your yard is going to easily pay for these courses. So to me, I think it's a great thing, and I really appreciate him doing this. For us regular guys, we just want to have great lawn. We all want to have great grass. And we want to know the real science and the real information on what's best to have a great yard. So anyways, check that out if you can. I think it's going to be a great tool. I'm really looking forward to it. And like I said, I just started watching the first one. So anyways, that's all I have today. I know I talked a lot about stuff, and that's just kind of what I do. I just have a lot of things on my mind. I don't have any kind of, you know, notes or anything like that. I don't really, when I do a live, I just go and do a live. I have a lot of things that I think about and like to pass on and talk about, and wherever I go is where I go. So I'm sorry if I'm really scatterbrained and all over the place sometimes, but, you know, I'm just trying to get out some information, which I think will help people. And it's mostly about people who are new or don't understand, you know, what it takes to grow grass. The reality is a couple of simple products and a little bit of time is all you need to have a great lawn. And you can start thinking about it and getting ready to do that right now. So anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Have a great one.